All right, we're here again, once again, with the Erskin Music Show, and I'm so excited that you guys have joined me today. We're going to be talking about our top story and our only story today. This is a show that is fitting for a queen. Now, this queen had reigned for over 70 years, and one of the most impressive, longest reigns of any sovereign that we've ever seen on this planet. But was her reign problematic? I'd like to get you guys to just weigh in on the discussion about this queen, Queen Elizabeth II, who is now passed. And we're going to have a honest discussion today. If you guys want to jump in with your impressions, your thoughts of this queen, were you annoyed by some of the coverage? Did you enjoy some of the coverage? I'm going to talk about some funny things that are related to the coverage. So you won't want to miss this episode of the Erskin Music Show. Oh, yeah, the camera's right there. I got a new camera. Sorry about that. Hey, guys. By the way, we're doing the Erskin Music Show. And since this is live stream, we don't get to do it over again. And I just love that kind of energy. Let's bring it. Let's do it, people. Yeah. I think every show should start with fireworks. So there we go. The Erskin Music Show. We're back at it again. So glad you guys could join today. Man, have you enjoyed the coverage that we've seen about Queen of England? Have you enjoyed some of the things that you guys have seen? What are your thoughts? What are your comments? I'm going to obviously dive into a little bit of the history. For those of you who don't know, I actually learned some things myself. I'll be honest with you. And I show up on this show. I mean, I have to do some research. I have to actually know what it is that I'm talking about, or actually have some articles that I read through before I go on the show and figuring some things out. You guys had asked a question last week, and I want to make sure that we get a clear answer to that question. Where is Big Head? Big Head is in the corner of the room, and we kept looking, hearkening to somewhere out there as Big Head was going to join our discussion. We got Big Head. We got our second camera, and so Big Head is there, and we'll be talking to Big Head from time to time, who watches over the show, making sure it stays corny, making sure it stays just a little bit. What was the one teenager said about it? It was a little. I don't know if he said my show was the introduction was a little sus, or it was a little sketchy. But yeah, we try to keep the entire show like that. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear about the fact that this is seriously unserious. We do drill down some points related to some spiritual references, and obviously for those 850 plus subscribers that are a part of this show and this experience, that's probably the reason why you've come to school today, just because I love the Lord Jesus Christ, and I'm not ashamed to talk about that. Let's go. Y'all know who I am. And so we're going to get to it today. I think presently as we speak, I think they're having some of the funeral processions. And so this is timely. I've seen a lot of wonderful tributes online and people discussing different things that are going on in relationship to the Queen and then her influence and her impact. Have been some negative comments. There can't be positive comments without negative comments. You guys know. Oh yeah, it's a funeral. Yeah, we're going to a funeral today. Okay. Wait. All right. Sorry. So I'm out of order up in this thing today. Be in order here today. You guys know you can't ever have positive comments without some negative comments that are in there. And actually, on the Erskin Music Show, we welcome those negative comments that people have. Just stay classy, folks. So the comment section is turned on, and I would love to hear from you guys. I got some cool stories here. One of them kind of relates to my own family. It was this last weekend, and I had to go to a conference, but I said, hey, kids, first of all, y'all done snuck up on me and tried to turn the TV on before 9 o'clock. We don't turn TV on before 9 o'clock. And this is a pro tip for you parents that are out there, that was because my kids would get up kind of like I would do on Christmas Day, and they would show up, and having gotten up at 6 o'clock in the morning or the break of dawn, they'd want to turn on the TV and watch cartoons because Saturday is cartoons and have the opportunity to do that. And so I had to institute a rule in my family. There's no TV watching before 9 o'clock. So they get up at 7 o'clock. Well, they're spending a couple of hours with parents, a couple of hours with one another, doing some creative things around the house. And so they snuck up on me. It was about 8:45 or so. And I noticed they were probably watching Dude Perfect. what we watch around here a lot. And I said, hey, look, guys, turn on the television. There's a lot of incredible coverage that's going on right now related to Elizabeth II and her passing, and kingdom, Britain, royalty, monarchy, William, Harry, all the drama that's going on out there. And you guys should go and check some of this stuff out because this is incredible. And so the kids jumped on some of that television, and they watched it for about 30 minutes. I said, you got to watch at least 30 minutes of it. So they watched about 30 minutes, and then I think it was back to Dude Perfect and whatever football games were on during the day. And so, a lot of incredible coverage that's out there. I wanted to make sure that I said that. There's some questionable reporting that's going on, but listen, if you're part of the show and the effort or the attempt is to be negative, we can always find a reason to be negative, right? I think one of the great things about this whole passing and having reflection time is that there's a lot of positive things that people are saying, we're saying, and that's an exercise for us that I think that we do well to adhere to. All right, Queen of the United Kingdom. Here's just some historical facts that I think we should look at. Commonwealth. She reigned from the 6th of February, 1952 until her death this year, September 8th, 2022. She was a queen regent of 32 sovereign states during her lifetime and 15 at the time of her death. Her reign of 70 years, 214 days, is the longest of any British monarch and the longest recorded of any female head of state in history. Elizabeth was born in Mayfair, London, as the first child of the Duke and Duchess of York, later King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Her father acceded to the throne in 1936 upon his abdication of his brother King Edward VIII, making Elizabeth their heir presumptive. She was educated privately at home, homeschooler, and began to undertake public duties during the Second World War, serving in the auxiliary territorial service. Now, I saw some images of her, Big Head. Big Head, where you at? Get on here, Big Head. I saw some images of her back when she served in the auxiliary, and that was really quite a moving thing, knowing that she was trying to serve her country and do her part as she could, and as she should. We highly value that in our culture and in our country, and so that that was kind of cool to see some of the pictures of her doing that and doing it. Who knows? Maybe it was just for the photo op, but she seemed like she was doing it joyfully, in which we could talk more about that on this show at some point. In November 1947, she married Philip Mountbatten, a former prince of Greece and Denmark, and their marriage lasted 73 years until his death in 2021. They had 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward. And when her father died in February 1952, Elizabeth, then 25, became queen of 7 independent Commonwealth countries: the United Kingdom, Canada, Austria, New Zealand, South Africa, Pakistan, and Ceylon, known today as Sri Lanka, as well as the head of the Commonwealth. Elizabeth reigned as a constitutional monarch through major political changes, such as troubles in Northern Ireland, devolution in the United Kingdom, and decolonization in Africa, and the United Kingdom's ascension to the European communities, and then our latest drama with the European Union. The number of her realms varied over time as the territories gained independence and became republics. Her many historic visits and meetings included visits to China in 1986, Russia in 1994, and the Republic of Ireland in 2011, and meetings with 5 popes. Significant events include Elizabeth's coronation in 1953 and her celebrations of her silver, golden, diamond, and yes, platinum jubilees in 1977, 2002, 2012, and then this last celebration in 2022, respectively. Elizabeth lived the longest reign of any British monarch and the second longest reigning sovereign in world history, behind Louis XIV of France. She faced occasional Republican sentiment and media criticism of her family, particularly after the breakdowns of her children's marriage. That's a sticky subject that we can get into. Her annus horribilis in 1992, and the death of a former daughter-in-law, Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. I was around. I was alive. I was kicking. during that time. I was in my heyday during that time when that happened. However, support for the monarchy in the United Kingdom remained consistently high, as did her personal popularity. Elizabeth died at the age of 96 in Balmoral Castle, Aberdeen in 2022, months after her platinum jubilee, and is succeeded by her eldest son, Charles III. Elizabeth was born, as we said, in April 1926 during the reign of her paternal grandfather, King George V. Her father, Prince Albert, Duke of York, all these different things. Good. Elizabeth the Queen, go on. There's a lot of stuff, man. You guys recognize I'm reading all of this. I learned how to read, how important that is. All right, I'm skipping over some of this stuff because, well, you know, that's what you do when you don't need to read all of it. All right, so a couple of lessons from concentrated in her education. She majored on history, language, literature, and music. And she had a biography that was published of her childhood years entitled The Little Princess in 1950. Any of you guys read that? I don't know. Much to the dismay of the royal family, the book describes Elizabeth's love of horses, dogs. Here's another thing. I got effects now. All right. Corgis, you guys know. Ugh, ugly little dogs. Her orderliness and her attitude of responsibility. Get big head. Ask the people if they like corgis. No, I don't like corgis. All right. Such observations. Winston Churchill described Elizabeth when she was 2 as a character. She has an air of authority and a reflectiveness astonishing in an infant. Her cousin Margaret Rose described her as a jolly little girl, but fundamentally sensible and well-behaved. What do you think about the Queen after that? Let's get some sound bites for the show today, because we're not going to go extremely long, but I think it's important to share a couple of things here. And let's do this. That's not what I was going to share. All right. Oh. Yes. Share the screen. Oh yeah, that's not what I wanted to do here. I want to share this. Here's a soundbite. Legacy Media coming in here, and then I got some things from Christianity Today that I wanted to read about. Erskin Music Show. We'll jump into some of the music here in just a second. You guys will probably realize the kind of song that I'm going to play today. But I wanted to hear just a quick expose here. Soundbite related to her sense of humor. Let's jump on that. CBS, thanks for this one. You actually almost did some great reporting on this.
Tonight, Queen Elizabeth is being remembered for her stoic and steadfast leadership style in an ever-changing world. And while she's known for displaying her sense of duty, Her Majesty's sense of humor wasn't far behind. Here's CBS's Elizabeth Palmer.
She was at once the UK's majestic sovereign.
My lords, pray be seated.
And its accessible monarch. On the job, meeting and greeting her people with the perfect blend of
like a nursing home
and warmth.
And it was that indomitability, that humor, that work ethic, and that sense of history, which together
What does a student never have his hair
Elizabeth
fixed?
the Great.
Take her insistence on cutting the cake at a G7 summit with a sword.
There is a knife into my foot. I know there is.
She downright enjoyed the absurdity.
She was clowning. She's
Queen
straight
Elizabeth
capping.
never gave an interview, but she showed what she was made of. Part stoic dignity, on display in 2012 as cold rain drenched her Diamond Jubilee celebrations. But equally playful, as she was in this video, made for her Platinum Jubilee with the beloved Paddington Bear.
Perhaps you would like a marmalade sandwich. I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here.
She also knew how to leaven formality with a joke. as when Justin Trudeau announced that he was the 12th Canadian Prime Minister of her reign.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old. Good evening, Mr. Bond.
And no one in the UK will forget her star turn in the London 2012 Olympic Games video, when she teamed up with James Bond and apparently jumped out of a helicopter into the Olympic Stadium.
Bam!
At a concert in Toronto the night she died, Sir Elton John said it all.
She led the country through some of our greatest and darkest moments with grace, decency, and a genuine
Sir
caring
Elton
warmth.
John.
And I'm glad she's at peace, and I'm glad she's at rest, and she deserves it. She's worked bloody hard.
A multifaceted...
All right. And then she said something goofy at that point. So thank you, CBS, for reporting that and for giving such a endearing report there. That was cool. I actually enjoyed that. No capping, no criticism there. You guys did a fantastic job. If you do a good job, and I think it's a good job, I'll let you know it's a good job. All right. So your comments, your thoughts out there, sound bites related to the Queen that you guys have heard. There's been a lot of commentary talking about the comparative kind of forms of government between a monarchy, representative monarchy, representative republic, democracy, all those different things, freedom, colonialism. We'll get into some of that here in just a few moments, but I wanted to make sure that we at least are covering some of the surface things. And look, my kids grew up watching Paddington Bear. You probably grew up watching Paddington Bear as well. And I remember the particular movie that she was in, and I thought that was pretty endearing. That she would be a part of such light and dainty things as the Queen. All right, it's the Erskin Music Show, and we're talking about the memoirs and memories of Queen Elizabeth II. I've got a couple of things that it is that I want to address that I think will be encouraging to you. But since this is, why are there things flying through the screen? Big Head, do we know what's going on? Oh. I feel like there's particles or something that are flying through the screen. I don't know what that is. Bubbles or something. We have a small child that stays with us now, and every once in a while he'll get his bubbles out and he'll like make the bubbles. And I felt like he was doing that, but no, that's not the bubbles. There's a couple things that I wanted to say, but since this is the Erskin Music Show, let's get to a little bit of the music of Erskin. That's it to be me. Let me do this quick copyright disclaimer. Y'all know what the deal is. I get a chance to use all of this material because it's fair use. Copyright Act of 1976 allows me to do this, and so I do it. Here's the song Better Day.
Looking at the photographs in an album left behind, thinking of the wonder years and all the dreams I resigned. Things I should have done, I should have said. Something is telling me the best is still ahead. I'm alive and well, I've got a story to tell. I'm not what I used to be. To live is Christ, to die is gain, by the power of his name and the glory of God in me. It's a better day. Oh, it's a better day. Running in a field of dreams and possibilities, given to the promises of a world yet unseen. I've seen brokenness, times I've bled. Something is telling me the best is still ahead. My God is telling me the best is still ahead. I'm alive and well, I've got a story to tell. I'm not what I'm not what I used to be. Live as Christ, die as gain, by the power of his name and the glory of God in me. Yeah, I'm alive and well, I've got a story to tell. I'm not what I used to be. Live as Christ, die as gain, by the power of his name and the glory of God in me. With the glory of God in me. It's a better day. Oh yeah. It's a better day. Oh yeah. It's a better day. Oh yeah. It's a better day. Oh yeah.
Day. Let me get myself up on the screen. That was the song Better Day by me. And we're at a different day, certainly. A different day than even we were a couple of weeks ago when the Queen was still alive. And there were numerous reports about her health declining and sort of the concern that we have there. I'm not from England. Let me go ahead and say that. For those of you who are watching from an international audience, I think I would ball out if I was there, though. So, I mean, England, UK, I should be a part of what's going on there. Certainly, Erskin Music, you guys need some more of that. But there has been some negative criticism of the Queen, of the monarch. I think anytime we find ourselves in a society, and it seems like they kind of shadow ban this episode today, probably wasn't the wisest thing to do one on, on the Queen Elizabeth on the day of her funeral. But I figure free speech will allow me to do this, and this will all come out in the podcast at some point anyway. But I did want to say this for those professors and people who are coming out, and there's extreme negativity related to, sort of the cultural zeitgeist that we have these days related to oppression, people being subjugated, colonization, freedom movements that are going on. That's an inevitable part of what it is that we have to discuss when we come to a subject matter where there's any disparity in power. Obviously, in our country, we talk about slavery, we talk about civil rights, we talk about the continued struggle of civil rights, and we talk about that in the sense of justice or injustice that have taken place and are taking place. And obviously, as you know, that conversation can get quite heated. There's a lot of vitriol on both sides. And there's a lot of people who are frustrated that the conversation is to such a degree where people can't speak sensibly about things of this nature. And so I would just say, anytime in a fallen world, you want to find something negative to say, you can find something negative to say. I think it's a part of the better angels of those who have been justified and redeemed by Christ Jesus to sometimes, in certain situations, and I think this would be an example of it, find something that's actually good that you can say, even though everything that a person does, because we live in a fallen world and we are sinners, and everything that a person is a part of can have some taint or stain or slant of sin that's related to it. It's important for us to know some, I think, fundamental and critical things. And so I got this article, this would be in the show notes today, from Christianity Today. And I think they did a good job of talking about the faith. There's been a number of people who have talked about the faith of Queen Elizabeth, and that is a specific and particular thing that is related to her reign. It is particular to who she is and the position that she holds. So I'll read a little bit from this from Christianity Today, and I think this will kind of balance out what it is that we're hearing. There's one more thing that I wanted to get into, which is kind of my insights and spiritually where I think this takes us today. Hang on for the rest of that, and then we'll be out for today. But the reign of Queen Elizabeth II spoke frequently about her personal faith in Christ. Delivering her first Christmas address in 1952, this was a tradition that was started by her grandfather, King George V. The Queen requested prayer for her upcoming coronation. And she said in that, I want to ask all of you, whatever your religion may be, to pray for me on that day, she said, to pray that God would give me the wisdom and the strength to carry out the solemn promise I shall be making, and that I may faithfully serve him and you all the days of my life. These are direct quotations from her. And so she said what she said. This is Christianity Today now. As one of the world's most recognizable and celebrated leaders for more than 7 decades after that Christmas, the Queen demonstrated how to keep one's Christian faith personal, private, inclusive, and compassionate while serving in a global public role under intense scrutiny from virtually every sector. Queen Elizabeth II inherited religious responsibilities as the defender of the faith. And I put that in quotes there because that is a significant title that is related to her office and station as the Queen. So big up for the reporting there. Defender of the faith and Supreme Governor of the Church of England, titles vested in the reigning British monarch since Henry VIII renounced the papacy in 1534. At her coronation in 1953, Her Majesty took an oath to, quote unquote, her words, maintain and preserve inviolability, the settlement of the Church of England, and the doctrine, worship, discipline, and government thereof, as by law established in England. Her duties included appointing archbishops, bishops, and deans of the Church of England as advised by the Prime Minister. In 1970, she became the first sovereign to inaugurate and address the Church's General Synod in person, a practice she continued every 5 years after the Dacian elections. 3 weeks after her coronation, the Queen followed historical precedent and swore to maintain the Church of Scotland. This is significant. Listen to this. There is not only the responsibility that we find, but also a sense of humility. Check this out. She swore to maintain the Church of Scotland, honoring her duty to preserve the settlement of the true Protestant religion as established by the laws made in Scotland. The Church of Scotland is Presbyterian and recognizes only Jesus Christ as King and head of the church, resulting in Her Majesty's lack of an official title and participation as a regular member. More than tradition, well, the Queen's faith was more than a product of polite deference to historical tradition. Throughout her reign, she articulated the importance of her faith and recommended it to her subjects. For me, the teachings of Christ, love this quote. Come on, where's the gospel choir when you need a gospel choir? Gospel choir is coming in before this and after this. I'm tell you what. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! All right. For me, the teachings of Christ and my own personal accountability before God provide a framework in which I try to lead my life, she said in 2000. And I'll get to the comment section in just a second. I, like so many of you, have drawn great comfort in difficult times from Christ's words and example. In 2002, the Queen endured a painful year in relationship to her family and a lot of the things that were going on, personal losses with the death of her sister, Prince Margaret, and the Queen Mother. In her annual Christmas address that year, she spoke of how her faith had sustained her. She said, I know just how much my own faith has been there to guide me through good times and to each of these. Each day is a new beginning, and I know that the only way to live my life is to try to do what is right, to take a long view, to give of my best in all that the day brings, and to put my trust in God. Those were her words. Comment section turned on. Incredible lady, says Mayoshi. And here's a quotation that Mayoshi puts in the stream. I'll put it up on the screen. And for those of you who will soon be listening on the podcast, I want to make sure that this comment from one of our faithful listeners gets in there. I read a quote from her that says, I pray that Jesus would return in my lifetime so that I could lay my crown at his feet. And certainly she now gets to do that in the presence of what seems to be a genuine faith in which she would say, my Lord and my Savior. Had some interesting comments. I won't get to those. I did a lot of research this morning, and the friendship that her and Billy Graham had. And that was one that was not just a matter of political or spiritual expedience, but one in which they seem to genuinely be interested in talking about the things of Christ. Obviously, you know, Billy Graham, he gonna be on that thing. Billy don't play, or Billy didn't play. Billy was on that thing, and so you know, the fact that they had that in common and were able to share that, even though the focus of the Church of England and Protestantism a little bit different, the centrality of finding faith in Christ, I think those were important things to consider as well. And so just a lot there. I put here on the screen a picture of, I believe, a time when she visited in Jamaica, and there's obviously a royal tribute for her there. You see all of the black soldiers in their regalia behind her. There was one particular picture, and I didn't put that image up there, but there was one particular picture that I saw of her in which she was being carried along by some of the indigenous people. I think it was in the country of Ghana, and then maybe some of the Philippines and some of those countries. A lot of people upset about that type of perspective. But again, if you want to bring that energy to the discussion, I understand. I get it. There's people who have subjugated, they've dominated other people. They have had some level of influence and influence over people's lives. I get that. I understand all of that. Listen, check the melanin. I'm that guy in America, but I'm not on that focus. I'm on that focus of recognizing she comes into the flow of history at a particular time, one in which she didn't really get a chance to decide who she, and but and here's, I think, one of the main lessons in recognizing her position in life. She tried to do things that I think made life better for a lot of people. The Commonwealth and some of her visits and some of the comments that she made related to the Commonwealth and try to be a part of that, definitely made cooperation between certain nations who were sovereign a bit better. And yeah, there's just a lot of things that you could look at and you could say, well, that was better than it would have been. And I think as a focus of her life, recognizing that she was trying to please Christ was one in which she took seriously. Oh, that we would all take that seriously in our lives. One in which she would even at times, because of a biblical view on marriage, challenge people in the royal family, challenge people in our own household to upkeep the standards of marriage in their culture. And so, as a defender of the faith in that regard and many other regards, fantastic job. I can only imagine that as she entered into the presence of Jesus, he may have said to her, "Well done, my good and faithful service." All right, there are three things that I love, and then I'll give one thing that is a verse of scripture that I want to remind us of here, since this is the Erskin Music Show. Big Head, where are you at? Keep looking for Big Head. Is Big Head in the building? Yeah, let's get Big Head back. Big Head is back. All right, Big Head. Let's take that off of there. Big Head and I are having a discussion here. Big Head doesn't really say much, but intuitively, I know what Big Head is asking the question of. What are some things that I loved about this? I love the focus on kings and kingdoms. I love the focus that we don't talk a lot about kings and kingdoms in our country because we have a tendency to believe that our autonomy and the form of government that we have just kind of isolates us from having to be under anyone's rule. I think as a general note of just understanding biblical perspective, we're always under the rule of God, Big Head. We're always in a place where we recognize that our lives, the effect of our lives, the impact of our lives is fueled by the good regency of our King. I consider myself to be extremely privileged. I get a chance to do a show where I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. I get a chance to dream. I was having a conversation with somebody last week, and they were talking about, do you know what a privilege it is to be able to have a dream? And he said, I want to live my life in such a way that I restore people's ability to be able to dream. Because if you live in an impoverished or third world country or a place where subsistence living is a part of your natural experience, you don't get a chance to dream. You get a chance to try to figure out how to survive that day. And if the Lord wills, the next day. And so the fact that I get a chance to sit around and dream, what am I going to talk about? what kind of shows would I love to do is an incredible privilege. But all of that because of the sovereignty of God and where he's placed me and the ability that I have to be able to speak into people's lives and be a part of that. So I love that narrative that is one strand that is here. Another thing that I love about this is that I've actually seen people. Where's my focus camera? Can I get closer on the screen? Doom, doom, doom. I've actually seen people who are usually not that nice actually be nice on social media and say kind things. Don't. Never thought I would see the day where there's certain people who are, and I'm not going to name their names, would actually have a non-critical word to say and would actually have this, what I'm going to call big head, this exercise in kindness, like actually saying something nice about somebody or not taking it as an opportunity to criticize someone. I've actually seen people who have done that who don't normally do that. And that has warmed the cuckles of my heart to hear people actually be kind. You know what? Maybe we can practice that as a daily task. Find one person today, audience, and try to be nice to them today. I know it's a tall task and a tall order, but we can get that thing done. Tom Gallia is saying that it wasn't Elizabeth who said that, so we're gonna have to go back and fact check. All right, I love this. I love this show because we be fact checking each other on this show. By the way, Wikipedia was what I since we fact checking, and you guys want to go back, that was Wikipedia that I read from early on, and then Christianity Today. I try to cite my sources since this is educational as well. All right, I love that we are reminded of the eternal reign of Jesus. That's the third thing that I love in all of this, big head, that the reign of Jesus is an eternal reign. The fact that we have a 70-year reign, 70-year monarch, 70-year span in her life in which she reigned probably will not be outdone. Reminds us that there is no discontinuity on the throne or in relationship to God's sovereignty. He has always reigned. He currently is reigning, and he will always reign. There will never be a day in which any of God's people will wake up and say, our king has died, our sovereign has died. Death is no more after the resurrection of Christ. He has claimed all authority, all power. And here's an interesting quotation. I'll actually put this one on the screen. I was working this up this morning. But at John 18:37, Pilate said, so you are a king? And Jesus replied, you say that I'm a king, and for this reason I was born, and I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. And as you know, shortly after that, Pilate asked the question, well, then what is truth? It's interesting. I was going back and I was praying through and reading that dialogue this morning, and I was thinking through the fact that Jesus clearly states to Pilate that he is a king. And then Pilate goes and essentially speaking to the religious leaders of the day says, I find no fault in this man, and tries to figure out how to release him, but he can't do that. And so I'm going to release somebody, as is custom to do. I'll release Barabbas and crucify that guy. Now, think about this in the annals of power. And this is what I was just contemplating on this morning and actually dreaming about this morning. I had the privilege to sit and just try to pretend like I'm in view here, and watching this scene between Pilate and Jesus as they're having this discussion. There's a power dynamic that I think happens frequently in our family. Sometimes my kids who are getting a little bit older now, they kind of give dad a hard time, and because they are rather articulate at this point, we've homeschooled them. They will sometimes challenge let's just say they'll challenge my ideology. Can we say it like that? Yeah, they'll challenge my ideology. And every once in a while, I'll laugh at them, big head, because I realize they're not the parent. I'm the parent. And the things that they're saying are so comical to me because there's no way to get that law passed in this house because they're a child and not the parent. That law is not going to be passed. And it's interesting that in this conversation between Pilate and Jesus, we have Jesus, who is the sovereign, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords of all time, and then Pilate, who at that particular time seems to have the authority and the ability to outrank and outflank Jesus. Now, had it been one of those moments like in our household, Pilate could have easily started laughing and saying, "You call yourself a king? That's hilarious. Look at you. Look at the condition that you're in. Look at the situation that you're in. I'm the one that has the power." But yet these words that come out of Jesus' mouth really stop Pilate from being able to take any type of derogatory slant toward Jesus. And in fact, I think he begins to realize Pilate himself. Now, we can ask Jesus when we get to heaven, but I think he really begins to realize that he has been outflanked by Jesus. You say that you're a king, and he listens to Jesus' response and kind of goes, "Oh, dang. Okay, let's try to get out of this one as quickly as possible." Comment section is blowing up here. I'm going to be out of this one in just a second. Okay. All right. Okay. We fact checking each other on this. Tom Golly has some facts. Mayoshi has some facts. Check the stats. We'll check the stats on the show. I'm going to go back and I'm going to check that stat out and that quotation out, and we'll see what is what. So glad you guys are watching today, and so glad you guys are a part of this experience. I'm about to shut this thing down, but not before I make some announcements here about some things that are coming up here. You guys heard of Nehemiah Fest, as David Lynn, and probably one of the more popular shows of all time, was on here last week. Big Head, I'm gonna have to say goodbye to you, Big Head. Peace out. We'll talk to you later. Big Head will be back. Big Head is still in the room, but Big Head and I won't just discuss this anymore. All right, Big Head is out, but Nehemiah Fest is in. Oh, no, that's not Nehemiah Fest. Sorry. That's Nehemiah Fest, September 16th through the 18th. That's coming up here relatively soon, as a matter of 3 or 4 days. You guys will not want to miss the multiple bands that will be there. Tom Golly, are you going to be there this year? I don't think that I saw your name. So that is really cool Christian music festival that I'll be a part of this year. If you want to go back and see any of the logs and discussion about that, David Lynn was actually on the show last week. Enjoyed having him on. Such a kind and humble man who's doing some incredible things. Before we get out of here, the Erskin Music Podcast is on the way. More life, art, Christ, culture, and these conversations in the form of a podcast. You guys have asked for that. I know there's a lot of people who go to work, and then this spans over to their work time. I don't want you to deprive your employer. If you're supposed to be working at 9 o'clock or 9:15, be working and not watching this show. And so you guys now have a podcast that you'll be able to check in with. You can take that with you everywhere that you go. And one other thing that we need to do here today, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and now we're trying to grow that LinkedIn audience, man, you guys keep that energy and keep bringing that smoke to the show. All right, it's been the Erskin Music Show. I've enjoyed it. This is a show full of fireworks. But now we got to go. I'll see you guys later. I'll be back tomorrow. Straight capping on mega churches. You won't want to miss what it is that I have to say about that. Not all bad, but not all good. Erskin Music Show.